Ma'am, please calm down. Calling 911 to force someone to sell their private land is not an emergency. That was the officer's voice through my front gate's intercom, echoing off the iron fencing while my security cameras blinked red. Karen stood at the gate in high heels and a sparkling pink blouse, waving her arms and shouting like she owned the place. Her bleach blonde curls bounced with every stomp. "I am the HOA president," she screamed, turning red. "And I demand this man sells his ranch. We need it for my daughter's wedding venue, and it's the perfect location." My jaw clenched as I watched everything play out on my security feed from the comfort of my kitchen. I sipped my coffee and calmly hit the record button on the screen. That's when I heard her say it. "If he doesn't agree, then arrest him. He's refusing to cooperate with the community." I nearly dropped my mug. The officer took a step back, clearly shocked. "Ma'am, this property is not under your HOA. It's a private ranch. You can't call 911 for this." She didn't care. She kept yelling, kept demanding, kept calling my land community property and ideal for photos. That was when she turned toward the camera and yelled, "We'll see about that. I'll get this land one way or another." And then, she pulled out her phone, dialed again, and screamed, "Send someone higher. I want this land seized." I froze. Who the heck was she calling now? That was when my dog started barking wildly. I ran to the front porch, only to see two black SUVs rolling up behind the police cruiser. Now you're probably wondering how we got here. Let me tell you everything from the beginning. My name is Marcus Dean. I'm a 42-year-old retired firefighter from Texas, and I live on a peaceful, widespread ranch I bought with my life savings and some inheritance from my grandpa. My place is 5 acres wide, gated, private, and completely outside of the local HOA. I made sure of that before I ever signed the dotted line. I moved here for peace and privacy. I raise rescue horses, grow vegetables, and spend my afternoons fixing fences and drinking sweet tea on the porch. Life here is slow, honest, and exactly what I wanted after retiring early due to a back injury from the field. I'd been living here for 2 years without a single problem, until Karen moved into the neighborhood down the road about 5 minutes away, in one of those tight, gated communities with matching mailboxes and fake flower beds. I first met her at a community farmers event at the local town hall. She had that loud voice that echoed even in silence, wearing a sash that literally said, HOA President, like it was a beauty pageant. She introduced herself to me like I was one of her new recruits. "And you are?" she asked, wrinkling her nose at my dusty jeans and boots. "Marcus. I own the ranch at the edge of Oakfield." She blinked. "The ranch?" Then her face lit up. "Oh, that ranch. The one with the wide barn and the long driveway? I've had my eye on that land for months. It's perfect for events." I raised an eyebrow. "Well, it's not for sale." Karen didn't like that answer. At first, it started with simple, friendly suggestions. She'd send notes through the local town network app. Wouldn't Marcus's ranch make a lovely spot for weddings? Some of us in the HOA were talking. His barn could be remodeled beautifully. Then came the emails. One of them read, "Marcus, I represent the Homeowners Association of Glenridge. We'd like to discuss purchasing your ranch to host community events and upscale weddings. This would benefit everyone, including you, financially and socially. Let's talk." I didn't reply. She showed up at my gate one morning, holding color-printed designs of event center mock-ups, with balloons and fountains sketched over my barn. "I even spoke to a decorator," she beamed. "It'll be gorgeous. Picture this. Your property as Karen's garden venue." I told her again, "Karen, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not interested in selling or renting. I live here. This is my home." She pouted. "But I've already promised my daughter. Her wedding is in 6 months. You have so much space." I held firm. "I'm not part of your HOA. I don't owe you anything." She stormed off with a forced smile, but I could tell something was brewing. And I was right. A few weeks later, I noticed drones hovering over my barn. The first time, I thought it was just kids. The second time, I shot one down with a slingshot and found a sticker on it. Glenridge HOA survey. I called the sheriff and made a report. He laughed. You've got a real one on your hands. Karen's been at it with a lot of folks. But it didn't stop. She sent mail with fake HOA warnings, even though I wasn't a member. Things like violation, rusted farm equipment visible from the road. Violation, barn does not meet aesthetic standards. I kept ignoring her, until one morning I woke up and found 3 cars parked inside my gate. They had somehow gotten in. Karen was there with 2 men in suits, walking around my land like they were doing an inspection. I ran outside, furious. What the hell are you doing here? Karen grinned. These are my wedding planners. I thought if you saw how amazing it could look. I cut her off. Get off my property. I had to escort them all out while calling the sheriff again. He gave them a warning, but that just seemed to push her even further. It brings us to today. She came to my gate, dialed 911, and demanded I sell the ranch. The officer, confused but trying to stay calm, told her to leave. She didn't. That's when the SUVs rolled up. I stood there on my porch, watching the dust rise behind those black wheels. I could already see Karen waving at them like she'd summoned some kind of cavalry. Who did she call? Were these just more fake enforcers or something worse? And what were they about to do? Let me ask you, have you ever had someone try to take your peace just because they wanted it? This isn't just about land. It's about standing your ground. Before I continue, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments and let me know if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare like this. Because this is just the beginning. The SUVs came to a full stop. The doors opened, and what I saw next made my blood run cold. The back doors of the black SUVs swung open. Out stepped 4 men. 2 wore suits. The other 2 wore black polos with "Private Enforcement" written across the chest in big white letters. They had clipboards, earpieces, and the kind of sunglasses that made you feel like you were suddenly in a courtroom, even though you were standing in the middle of your own dirt driveway. Karen waved at them like they were old friends. Over here. This is the ranch I told you about. It's the perfect space, just as I described. I stepped off my porch slowly, my boots crunching the gravel with each step. I had one hand on my hip, right above the holster I legally carried every day on my ranch. I wasn't trying to scare anyone, but I wasn't about to be scared either. The taller of the 2 men in suits looked up from his clipboard. Mr. Marcus Dean? I nodded. That's me. He extended a hand, but I didn't take it. We're from the Glen Ridge Private Community Enforcement Division. We've received multiple complaints about your property from HOA President Karen Bellingham. We're here to inspect the site and discuss compulsory acquisition for community benefit. I squinted. Come again? Karen jumped in, flashing her teeth like she was already cutting a wedding cake. I told them this land is under community interest now. We can file for acquisition under local event development statutes. I blinked. Karen, my land isn't part of your HOA. This is private property. I have the title deed and the boundary map framed in my office. You're trespassing. She huffed. But the Glen Ridge Board agreed. We need this property. My daughter is getting married in 6 months. We have influencers coming. I turned to the men in black shirts. You guys cops? They shook their heads. We're third-party enforcers, sir. Contracted to investigate properties that may fall under contested civic usage. I stared at them. Contested civic usage? There's no contest. This is my ranch. I paid cash. I've got the documents. You're standing on 5 acres that have been in my family since my grandfather got back from World War II. That's when one of them raised a scanner and started walking toward my barn. Hey! I yelled. My dogs barked furiously from the fenced-in side yard. I blocked the path. Touch anything and I'll call the sheriff. Karen puffed her chest. You're already under inspection. I took out my phone and hit the speed dial button for Sheriff Jacobs. Sheriff, you're going to want to come out here. The sheriff arrived 10 minutes later, siren off, but red and blue lights flashing as he pulled into my driveway. Karen immediately marched up to him like she was leading a parade. Sheriff Jacobs, thank goodness you're here. This man is standing in the way of progress. Sheriff Jacobs scratched his head and looked at me. You called me? I nodded. They're trespassing, and these guys claim they're enforcing some kind of civic seizure on private land. Karen waved her hand. Don't listen to him. I have the HOA board's full approval, and we've filed paperwork with the county. This land is perfect for the Glen Ridge Wedding Center. The sheriff turned slowly toward her. Karen, he said in that tired, slow voice only a sheriff in a small Texas town can do. You and I both know this property isn't part of your HOA. You've been warned, and now you're bringing in outside contractors? She smiled sweetly. It's not personal. It's business. Well, he replied, business or not, this here is trespassing. If Marcus wants to press charges, I'm happy to assist. One of the suit-wearing men cleared his throat. Sheriff, we were told this land is under dispute. We're acting under client authority to investigate civic viability. The sheriff leaned in. Client authority don't beat the law, son. That shut them up, for now. But Karen wasn't done. She stormed back to her SUV, yanked out a giant binder, and waved it like it was the Declaration of Independence. This, she shouted, is a petition signed by 84 members of Glen Ridge. We want this ranch developed. Sheriff Jacobs turned to me. You want her gone? I nodded. I want all of them gone, today. That's when Karen did the unthinkable. She stormed back to the gate, stood in front of my camera, and shouted, Fine, but this isn't over, Marcus. If I can't have this land peacefully, I'll make sure you regret owning it. And she took her high heels and stomped all the way back to her car. The sheriff helped me file a formal no trespassing warning against the Glen Ridge HOA board and their contractors. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought the message was clear. But the next morning I woke up to find that someone had broken into my back paddock. 3 of my horses were loose, my barn lights were flickering, and someone had painted the words, Community Land, right on the side of my red barn in giant white spray paint. I stood there, fists clenched, staring at the vandalism. This wasn't over. It had just turned personal. I stood there, still barefoot in my porch slippers, staring at the spray paint on my barn wall. Community Land. White, sloppy, dripping letters that glared back at me like a threat. My fists clenched harder as I scanned the paddock. 2 of my horses were grazing nervously by the far fence. The third, Cinnamon, had made it halfway toward the creek before I finally caught up to her. Her halter had been cut. Cleanly. Whoever did this knew their way around animals. I returned to the barn, heart pounding, and took photos of everything. The paint, the broken latch, the hoof prints leading out. I even found something else tucked in the dirt near the gate. A plastic name badge. It read, Glen Ridge HOA, Event Team Volunteer, Ashley. I didn't recognize the name, but I knew where to look. Later that morning, I drove into town with a USB drive of security footage in my front pocket and a fury bubbling under my skin. Sheriff Jacobs met me at his office. You're telling me someone broke onto your land, released your horses, and vandalized your barn after I gave a formal warning to the HOA board? I slid the USB drive across his desk. Check camera 4, 2:37 a.m. He plugged it in. The screen flickered. There she was, a young woman in yoga pants and a hoodie, creeping across my pasture under the moonlight, bolt cutters in hand, and right behind her, Karen, in a satin robe and slippers, drinking something from a pink tumbler like she was strolling through her own backyard. Sheriff Jacobs leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. She was there, on your land, again. Yup. And she had someone else with her who cut your fence and turned your horses loose? Yup. He stood and walked to the back office. I heard him call for Deputy Riley. By the time he returned, his jaw was set. We're going to pay Karen a visit, and if she lies, she's going to be sorry. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't scared of being sorry. She was too entitled to think she could be wrong. Let me tell you a little more about Karen Bellingham. She wasn't always HOA president. No. According to some of the Glen Ridge folks I'd met in town, she declared herself HOA president 3 years ago after leading a fundraiser that bought fake rose arches for the community gate. After that, she started handing out citations like candy and changed her title on Facebook to Community Operations Executive. Her husband left her shortly after. Her daughter Amanda had been engaged 4 times but never made it past the rehearsal dinner. And now, Karen had latched onto this dream of throwing the wedding of the decade in Glen Ridge, even though her daughter's fiancé barely spoke in public and didn't look thrilled any time I saw him. Her sights were fixed on my ranch. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about community. It was about control. And the more I resisted, the more obsessed she became. That same evening, I was tending to my horses when a dark sedan pulled into my gravel drive. I walked up cautiously, wiping sweat from my brow. Out stepped a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, blonde braid, nervous eyes. She was holding a wrapped dish of cornbread. "Hi," she said softly. "You must be Mr. Dean. I'm Ashley from Glen Ridge." My heart dropped. Ashley, the same name on the badge I found. My expression must have changed because she raised her hands quickly. "Wait, I'm not here to cause trouble, I swear. I didn't know she was going to do that last night." I folded my arms. "You were on my land." I know, I regret it. I didn't cut anything, I thought we were scouting for photos. Karen said you were on board." My eyebrows shot up. "On board? With what?" "She told us you agreed, said you gave permission for us to tour the land at night to plan a surprise wedding shoot." I stepped closer. "You believed that?" Ashley looked like she might cry. "I did. Until she asked me to cut the fence, I said no. Then she pulled out the bolt cutters herself and told me to cover the gate. I didn't know what to do. I panicked. I left as soon as I could." I narrowed my eyes. "Why are you telling me this now?" Ashley looked down at the cornbread. "Because she told me to lie to the sheriff, to say we weren't there. But I'm not built for this drama, and she's out of control." I took the cornbread silently, still steaming. "I'll tell the sheriff," she added. "I'll make a statement. Just, please don't hate me." I nodded once. "You do the right thing now, Ashley, and I won't." The sheriff was thrilled when I called and told him what happened. Ashley showed up to the station within the hour, gave her statement, and even handed over screenshots of Karen texting her to get cute photos of the barn. And while that might have been enough to scare off most people, Karen wasn't done, not even close. Because 3 days later, as I was fixing the paddock lights, I got a knock at the front door. I opened it to find 2 city planning officers standing on my porch, clipboards in hand. "Mr. Dean." "Yeah?" "We're here to inform you that a zoning review request has been filed against your property. There are complaints that your barn is being used for unauthorized events and may be operating as a commercial space." I blinked. "What?" "Until this investigation is closed, your barn must remain shut for safety review. If you're found in violation, you could be subject to a fine of up to $25,000. I stared at them, stunned. My barn closed? "I don't host events," I snapped. "I raise horses." "We're just following up on a citizen complaint," one officer replied. "It came from the Glen Ridge HOA." I stepped out onto the porch. "Let me guess," I said bitterly. "Karen Bellingham?" They exchanged a look. "We can't confirm the name." But I knew. I knew. She was trying to shut me down from the inside out. If she couldn't buy my land or break me with trespassing, she was going to bury me in red tape. This wasn't over. But now it wasn't just about me. It was about standing up for everyone she'd ever tried to intimidate. I took one last look at the city officers, thanked them for the warning, then shut my barn doors. And as I walked back to the porch, I heard my phone buzz. A new email. From Karen Bellingham. Subject: Time's up. It read, "You should have sold when I asked nicely. Now you'll beg me to take it off your hands." I stared at it, heart pounding, and then I looked out at my land. No. She had no idea who she was messing with. The email from Karen stayed on my screen, burning like wildfire in my chest. Now you'll beg me to take it off your hands. I didn't even finish my dinner that night. My appetite had turned into iron in my gut. She'd gone too far, again. This wasn't just a nuisance anymore. This was full-on warfare, the kind that doesn't stop until one side is completely crushed. I spent most of that night walking the borders of my ranch, double-checking every lock, every fence post, every camera. I fed the horses and reinforced the barn doors just in case. My dog Baxter followed me the entire way, growling at the wind, ears perked like he felt something coming. I didn't sleep much, but I was ready. The next morning I walked into town and met with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Donna Blake. She was in her 50s, wore cowgirl boots to court, and had a reputation for dismantling crooked land claims faster than most judges could gavel them. Donna didn't need me to finish the story before she started flipping through files and pulling out county zoning codes. "This is retaliation," she muttered. "She's trying to bury you in bureaucratic noise so you give up. Seen it 100 times. Can we stop her?" Donna smirked. "Oh, honey. Not only can we stop her, but if she pushes one step further, we'll bury her in court documents so thick she'll have to start a GoFundMe to pay her HOA dues." I laughed. For the first time in days, I actually laughed. Donna handed me a stack of documents. "These are cease and desist orders. This one goes to Karen. These others go to the HOA board members and the city code enforcement office, just so they know they're getting dragged into an illegal land war. I'll file a civil harassment suit if she shows up again." I felt lighter walking out of that office. For a moment I believed it might finally be over. But it wasn't. Not even close. 2 days later, I woke up to the sound of blaring music. Pop wedding music. Something cheesy and loud, echoing through the trees like a bad dream. I threw on my boots and stormed to the end of my long driveway. And what I saw made me stop in my tracks. There was a full photo shoot happening just outside my ranch's front gate. Balloons, a white archway, a photographer snapping shots of a couple holding hands and smiling. And standing in the middle of it all, Karen, wearing a floral dress and a wide-brimmed hat, directing people like it was her movie set. I walked down to the gate and called out, "Karen, what the hell is this?" She turned, didn't even flinch. "Oh, Marcus, so glad you came out. We're just doing a little pre-shoot, just the save-the-date pictures. Amanda wanted it to be near the barn backdrop." I looked at the couple. The groom looked uncomfortable. The bride, Amanda, I assumed, looked embarrassed. "You're on public land," she added with a shrug. "The edge of your fence is right next to the county road. Perfect view of the barn." I clenched my jaw. "And the speakers?" "Oh, don't be so uptight," she said, waving her hand. "It's a celebration. We'll be done in an hour." "Turn it down," I growled. "Now." Karen gave me a smirk I'll never forget. "I'd be more polite, Marcus," she said, stepping closer. "We're still waiting on the results of that zoning review. You don't want me to think you're being uncooperative, do you?" That was it. I walked back to my house, grabbed my old speaker system, the one I used when my fire crew came out for barbecues, and cranked it up. Country rock, bass thumping so hard it shook the gate. Karen screeched and tried yelling over it, but it was useless. She stormed off, photographers in tow, shouting that I was ruining the moment and acting like a bitter ex-boyfriend. I didn't care. But later that night, she struck back. Around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my gate camera. Motion detected, 11:02 p.m., front gate. I opened the feed. It was Karen, again. This time she wasn't alone. She had a man with her, looked like early 40s, same smug face, wore a shirt that said, "Venue Consultant." He was holding blueprints and pointing at my land like they were finalizing a contract. Karen leaned toward the camera and said clearly, "Phase 1 will begin here. He's going to break. It's just a matter of time." She tapped on my gate with her nails, smiled at the lens, and walked off. That was the moment I realized she didn't care about the law. Not anymore. She was obsessed. She'd convinced herself this land already belonged to her, that it was just a matter of bullying me until I gave in, and she was using every trick in the book to push me there. The next morning, the sheriff called. "I just got an anonymous tip," he said. "Somebody called claiming your ranch is being used for illegal gatherings and storing hazardous materials." I sighed. Let me guess. No name, but it came from the Glen Ridge area? Yep. And she's filed a formal code violation too. I ran my hand down my face. "What now?" "Well," he said, "the county has to do a health and safety inspection now. Don't worry, it's routine. I'll let my guy know you're clean. But Marcus, she's stepping this up." "I know," I replied, "and I'm done playing defense." That evening, I called Donna and told her I wanted to file a restraining order, not just against Karen, but against any member of the Glen Ridge HOA who steps foot on my property again. I started a file with every video clip, every photo, every voice recording. I printed out the deed and had it notarized, again, and I began building a digital timeline of every time she had harassed me or interfered with my property. But before I could even deliver the legal paperwork, I woke up one morning to the smell of something burning. I ran outside. Smoke was rising from the edge of my land. The far east fence was scorched black. Someone had set fire to the dry grass at the border, and the flames had almost reached my barn. It didn't spread far. Thank God the sprinklers kicked in and the breeze was on my side. But the damage was real, and the message even louder. This was no longer about weddings or barns or land. This was war. The moment I saw the charred fence and the blackened grass licking at the edge of my pasture, I felt something break inside me. It wasn't fear. It was rage. This wasn't just petty harassment anymore. Someone, Karen or someone working for her, had set fire to my property. If the wind had shifted even slightly, my horses could have been trapped. My barn could have gone up in flames. My home could have been lost. I called 911. The fire department showed up within 15 minutes. They put out the last of the smoldering patches and began taking photographs. I stood by, fists clenched, trying to stay calm. Sheriff Jacobs arrived shortly after. He took one look at the damage and didn't say a word for a full 30 seconds. Then he walked up to me and asked, "Got cameras on this side?" "Yeah," I said, my voice like gravel. "South pasture. Caught the glow, but it was dark, still pulling the footage." He nodded. "This is arson. You know that, right? It's a felony." I didn't flinch. "Then let's treat it like one." We both turned toward the fence. A clear plastic tag had melted and curled up into the ash. Sheriff Jacobs used a pen to lift it from the ground and read it. "Property survey. Glen Ridge Wedding Venue Planning. Section B." We both stared at each other. It was official. This was no longer some neighbor dispute. This was criminal. And she was leaving a trail. I spent the next few hours emailing the footage to Donna, our lawyer, and backing up everything to a separate hard drive. I also updated the sheriff on every interaction, every document I had, from fake HOA warnings to trespassing attempts and screenshots of her emails. Donna called and said, "We've got enough now to file for a civil protection order and criminal charges. This is bigger than we thought." But something still didn't feel right. Karen was bold, yes. Delusional, definitely. But setting fire to a man's land, that felt too risky, too far, unless she was desperate. That's when I got the next email. No subject, just a video attachment. I clicked on it, and it opened to Karen's voice. She was filming herself inside her house, standing in front of a whiteboard with wedding plans on it, champagne in hand and her voice shaking. "Today is Amanda's bridal shower, and I just want everything to be perfect. Marcus is going to regret making me look like a fool." Then she turned the camera to Amanda. Amanda looked pale, tired, and absolutely miserable. "Tell them how much you love the barn, sweetie," Karen cooed. Amanda glanced at the camera, then muttered, I don't want to get married there, Mom. Karen's eyes narrowed. What was that? Amanda swallowed. I said, I don't want the wedding there. It's not ours. And he doesn't want us there. Karen stormed back in front of the camera and shut it off. The video ended. I sat there stunned. She was cracking. Finally. But not before trying to destroy me. Later that night, while I was walking Baxter near the creek, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello? Mr. Dean? A soft voice. It's Amanda, Karen's daughter. I stopped walking. Yes? I don't know how to say this. I'm sorry for everything. My mother is completely out of control. She's obsessed with the idea of making this wedding happen on your ranch. But I don't even want to get married anymore. Then don't, I said gently. There was silence. I tried calling off the wedding 2 weeks ago, she whispered. She threatened to fake a heart attack at the ceremony. I don't know what to do. My heart softened. This wasn't her fault. I'm going to get the law involved, I told her. I'm filing charges. I know, she replied. That's why I'm calling. I think she's planning something for next weekend. She keeps talking about the big move. I don't know what she means, but please, just be ready. I thanked her and hung up. The moonlight shimmered over the creek water. My hands tightened around Baxter's leash. The big move? She'd already sent drones, already filed zoning attacks, already tried arson. What else could she possibly do? I didn't have to wait long to find out. 2 days later, I was sitting on the porch with Baxter when I saw flashing lights down the road. Not red and blue, white, strobe, flashing. Then I heard it, the low rumble of trucks, multiple trucks. I stood, heart racing, and grabbed my binoculars. It was a wedding rental company convoy, 3 box trucks, 2 generators, and a catering van, all pulling up and parking on the county road directly in front of my ranch gate. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Karen stepped out of a silver SUV behind them, wearing a headset and clipboard like she was running a music festival. I rushed to my gate and buzzed the intercom. Karen, what are you doing? She smiled up at the camera. Just getting things set up early. We're staging the wedding here this weekend, whether you like it or not. I slammed the gate controls and turned on every security camera I had. This wasn't a threat anymore. It was an invasion, and I had just one move left. I picked up the phone, dialed my lawyer, and said 4 words. Time to sue everyone. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was done. Done trying to reason. Done giving warnings. Done playing defense while Karen treated my private ranch like a free-for-all venue. The sight of those trucks, unloading tents, chairs, tables, and even a damn dance floor, just outside my property line, lit a fire in my chest that no amount of patience could cool. She was staging a full-blown wedding on county property, right in front of my front gate, banking on the fact that I wouldn't dare make a scene. But she didn't realize something important. I wasn't alone anymore. While Karen shouted instructions to the crew, I was inside making phone calls. First to Donna. They're setting up a wedding outside my property line, I told her. They've blocked half the road. They're using my land as a backdrop, and they're telling people the wedding is happening on my ranch. She didn't even blink. Good. That's all we need, she said. I already filed the restraining order and civil harassment suit yesterday. But now we go nuclear. I hung up and immediately dialed Sheriff Jacobs. His voice was tired. What now, Marcus? You're gonna want to come see this for yourself. It didn't take long. 2 county deputies and a fire marshal arrived at the scene within the hour. They saw the half-blocked public road, the power generators sitting dangerously close to the ditch, and the trucks spilling out equipment like they were setting up Coachella. Karen greeted them with a smile like they were invited guests. Sheriff! Deputies! Wonderful! Please keep the press away from the east side. We're going to do the first look shots there. Jacobs blinked. Karen, are you out of your mind? She tilted her head. Excuse me? You've got a dozen county violations here, he said, pointing to the trucks. No permit, no crowd control, power equipment too close to the road, and you're illegally blocking public access. This isn't an event. It's a code nightmare. Karen's voice rose an octave. I have a permit. Let's see it, the fire marshal said flatly. Karen turned to dig through her handbag. Her hand shook. She pulled out a folded paper and handed it over. The fire marshal looked at it, then at her, then back at the paper. This is a photography permit for Glen Ridge Community Park, he said, deadpan. Karen blinked. It's transferable. We're technically near the... No, you're not. You're on the public road next to private property and your equipment is spilling across both. That's not covered by this. Jacob stepped in. Karen, I warned you before. You come near Marcus's land again, you're getting arrested. You and your whole crew are trespassing by proxy. Karen's eyes flared. She stomped over to the gate and screamed toward the camera. This is your fault, Marcus. You ruined my daughter's wedding. You're nothing but a bitter old man on a useless piece of land. I didn't respond, but my cameras captured every word. And Donna? She was watching the live stream. Within 24 hours, Donna filed for an emergency court order. We submitted video footage, photos of the unauthorized wedding setup, audio recordings of threats and written witness statements, including one from Amanda, who had finally broken down and called off the wedding for good. Karen was served papers at her Glen Ridge home by a deputy who'd had enough of her nonsense. The charges? Criminal trespass, attempted fraud through misrepresentation, destruction of private property, harassment, unlawful use of public land, and attempted zoning manipulation through coercion. Oh, and Donna slapped her with a $250,000 civil lawsuit for emotional distress, property damage, and intentional sabotage of private land. But the story didn't end there. A week later, I received a certified letter from the county's zoning office. Inside was an apology and a full dismissal of the inspection Karen had forced on my barn. Not only did they find no violation, but the inspector's report actually praised my land maintenance and called it a model for rural property management. I smiled at that. It felt good. Better than good. And as word spread through town, the truth about Karen started to catch up to her. Vendors began pulling out of Glen Ridge events. HOA members demanded her resignation. And Amanda? She left town, moved to Arizona to stay with her aunt, and finally breathe. But there was one last moment I'll never forget. I was sitting on my porch, 2 weeks after the legal storm passed, when I saw a car pull up. Not a black SUV, just a small beat-up sedan. Amanda stepped out, holding a small box. She approached the gate, quiet, respectful. I walked out to meet her. I wanted to thank you, she said softly. You didn't have to protect your land the way you did. Most people would have given up. But you didn't. This ranch has been in my family for 3 generations, I said. It's not just land. It's home. She handed me the box. Inside was a small silver horseshoe, cleaned, polished, beautiful. It was my great-grandfather's, she said. Karen tried to sell it in a yard sale once. I saved it. I think it belongs with someone who actually knows what it means. I nodded slowly, took the horseshoe in my hands. Thank you. She smiled. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you keep this place just the way it is. I intend to. And as she drove away, I felt something shift. Peace. Not just on the land, but in me. Now, whenever someone drives down my road and sees that red barn glowing in the sunlight, they sometimes stop and ask, "Hey, wasn't this almost a wedding venue?" I just smile and say, "Nope. It's exactly what it was always meant to be. Home. But you tell me, have you ever had to stand your ground against people who think your peace belongs to them? Let me know where you're watching from. And remember, kindness is powerful, but a strong boundary Sometimes it saves everything. It had been 3 months since the fire, the fake zoning claims, the wedding invasion, and Karen's breakdown at my gate. You'd think the dust would have settled by now. And in many ways it had. The lawsuits were moving forward. Karen was no longer HOA president. She was voted out in a dramatic town meeting that apparently ended with someone shouting, "We're not a cult, Karen." Her name had become a warning, an example. Glenridge even added a new clause to their charter. No member shall engage in unsolicited contact with non-HOA private landowners. That clause had my name on it unofficially. Still, I wasn't fully at peace. Not until I got a call from Donna. "Marcus," she said, her voice calm but excited, "you're going to want to come to court next Tuesday. We have a surprise witness." The courtroom was small, local, worn-out carpet and that constant hum from old ceiling lights. Karen sat at the front, stiff as a statue in a beige pantsuit, hair tied too tight, lips pursed like she was tasting vinegar. She didn't look at me when I entered. Donna gave me a small nod as I took my seat behind her. "Ready?" she whispered. "I've been ready since the first drone flew over my barn," I muttered back. The bailiff called the next witness. Amanda Bellingham. Karen jerked in her seat. Amanda walked in, head held high, hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She looked nothing like the nervous girl who stood behind Karen's wedding plans just months ago. She looked like someone free. She was sworn in and began. "My mother has been manipulating people for years," she said clearly. "She used my wedding as a weapon against Marcus Dean. She never wanted a wedding. She wanted control. Over the land, over me, over everything." Karen gasped. "Amanda!" The judge banged the gavel. "One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt, Ms. Bellingham." Amanda continued, tears welling but not falling. "She lied about permits. She told people Marcus had agreed. She even bragged about how she'd force him to sell if she kept piling pressure. She didn't care about the law. She just wanted to win." Donna stood. "Did she ever involve you directly in illegal activities?" Amanda nodded slowly. "Yes. She asked me to file a false statement to the county. I refused. That's when she started talking about setting up outside his gate, about claiming visual access rights. She said if she couldn't own the land, she'd own the image of it." You could hear a pin drop. Donna asked one final question. "Why are you here today?" Amanda turned to me. "Because Marcus never once yelled at me. He never retaliated. He just defended what was his. He stood his ground with respect even when my mother lost all of hers." Karen's lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. The truth was out. The judge ruled in our favor that same day. Karen was ordered to pay $175,000 in damages. She was also placed under a 2-year restraining order, preventing her from coming within 1,000 feet of my property or contacting me in any form, including through third parties. The county also fined her personally for misuse of public resources and abuse of municipal filing systems. She didn't speak as she left the courthouse. Didn't look at me. Didn't look at Amanda. She just walked away. Alone. I returned to my ranch that evening and stood by the barn, running my hand across the spot where she'd painted community land. The scar was gone, repainted and clean, but I'd never forget it. Not because of the damage, but because it taught me something. Some people will come into your life and try to break everything good you've built, not because they need it, but because they can't stand that you have it. But if you stand your ground, if you plant your feet not in anger but in truth, they can't take it from you. 1 month later, I hosted a cookout for the entire town. Even some Glenridge folks came, now that the air was clear. The sheriff brought ribs. Donna brought peach cobbler. Amanda showed up with a donation for my horse rescue, a check for $2,000, and a promise to help volunteer during the summer. We laughed. We ate. We healed. And that night, as the sun dipped behind the barn and the sky turned cotton candy pink, someone asked me, "So Marcus, would you ever rent out your land for a wedding?" I chuckled. then pointed to a little girl sitting on my hay bales, feeding Baxter from a plate of brisket. If she ever wants to get married here one day, I said, the answer is yes. But anyone else? I smirked. They'll need to ask very nicely. Thanks for following my story. I want to know, have you ever had someone try to take what was yours just because they thought they could? Where are you watching this from? Drop your state or city in the comments. And remember, peace is worth protecting, even if it takes a legal firestorm to hold the line.